What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte. Today, we're heading up to Toronto to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, what they did this offseason so far. Obviously, trading Mitch Marner, but there was a lot of good, honestly, that came for the Leafs. And honestly, it might be one of those things that, yeah, I mean, losing a player like Mitch Marner for close to nothing isn't great, but it is what it is, and they have to move on and they have to move forward. And like I said, I think they did a pretty good job of that when it's all said and done. We're going to discuss that here today. So let's start off with John Tavares, 34-year-old, former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, comes back on a 4-year deal, making $4.3 million per season. Now, this is a contract that could potentially be bought out depending on where Tavares is toward the end of his career. I think the first 2 years of this deal, it looks like a solid deal. I am a little bit worried about the longevity. Like, is John Tavares realistically going to be a Leaf at 36, 37, 38 years old? I don't know. He's had a lot of injury issues over the years. He had a great bounce back season last year. And when you consider the market for where the salary cap is going, it's all right, but it's one of those things where if Tavares went to market, he probably could have gotten more money. So when you put it that way, maybe it isn't that bad of a contract when it's all said and done. So it seems like is a win for the Leafs. Now, on top of that, you throw in another really good player. Matthew Knies signs a 6-year extension, making $7.75 million per season. This is going to send him right into free agency. He'll be 28 years old. You're buying a year of free agency, which I think is a win if you're the Maple Leafs. This is something that they did not do last time with, they kept signing those shorter deals with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. At least this will take him till he's 28 years old. Honestly, you'd prefer to have him till, the 8-year deal till he's 30. But I think Knies is also playing the game of, I want to see what the market's going to look like in 6 years from now. And I respect him for doing that. $7.75 million cap hit. I think that's really, it's a payment. But when you consider what Knies provides to this team, he's rightfully paid. He's paid what he should be. And it's taking up 8% of the cap, almost 13% of the cap between both Tavares and Knies. That's what the equivalent of what a Mitch Marner contract would have looked like. So if you want to put it in that perspective, would you rather have Tavares and Knies, or would you rather have Marner? Now, some people might say they'd rather have Marner, but I think, honestly, with where the Leafs are at, I'm okay with that. It's not the ideal situation. You prefer to have all three, but I'm okay with what the Leafs did here. Steven Lorentz comes back, signs a 3-year deal, 1.35. I really liked Lorentz. I think that's a great pickup for them. He's done really well with the Leafs. Obviously, earlier in his career with the Hurricanes. That's a good pickup. And for that amount of money, he probably could be making 2 on the open market. So I think that's another good signing by the Leafs. A couple more depth signings, but really the one that I really liked, I think a lot of Leaf fans liked, was Michael Pezzetta. Michael Pezzetta, at 27 years old, signs a 2-year deal, close to league minimum, $800K. This is a great player to add. This is that agitator, big guy. He's going to throw the gloves off at, what do they call it now? I forgot what they call the stadium now. You guys are going to kill me for this. What is it? Scotiabank Arena or whatever it is there in Toronto. That's a great pickup for them. I think a lot of people are very excited, especially seeing what he did in Montreal down the block. I think they know what this guy is capable of, and he's going to be a gamer and a guy that in the playoffs, we're going to probably hear his name a little bit more than the regular season. I think this is a guy that you sign him because in the playoffs he's going to be making his voice heard and his physicality as a presence well known to the opponent. So we'll see how things go with that. Like I said, Matt Murray ends up leaving the organization. Marner leaves. I think this team is going to be better off with where they're at, and it sucks because you obviously lost a couple of guys, and I think when it's all said and done, you kept Tavares. I think the circumstances for Tavares are going to be different. I think Marner, that situation is now gone. Tavares, I think people are going to like Tavares more because of his salary. Like, they're going to be like, oh, he put up a good amount of, like, if he puts up 30 goals this season, like, I think most fans would be very happy if he was able to hit that mark again. Is he going to? Maybe closer to the 20 goal mark for Tavares. But even if that's the case, like, I think at this point in his career, the amount of presence he brings off the ice into that locker room is going to be huge. And the expectations for Matthew Knies, it's going to go up because he signed a pretty big ticket and is going to take up in a team that doesn't have a ton of cap space, takes up some cap. So I think a lot of fans around the league, especially in Toronto, know the circumstance here. He's setting himself up. He's a top 6 forward now that he has to be putting up at 25 to 35 maybe goal range, right? That's what they're going to expect from him. So now that Marner's gone, though, I think it's going to give more opportunities for Matthew Knies to develop as a player and become more of a presence for this team. And I think when you look at the Leafs right now, as much as there's a lot of things you could be negative about, and the whole, obviously the white elephant in the room, it is what it is. And I think the growing forward now for the Leafs is we have what we have. We still have Nylander. We still have Tavares. We still have, Matthews, right? You still have Austin Matthews, who is an incredible hockey player. And then you look at the back end. The back end has seen some changes over the years, but I don't think that was one of the issues with this team necessarily. I think they just ran into a Florida Panthers team that was just what they were. And we knew change was going to come to this team. I think the big change obviously is Marner not coming back. But I know fans don't want to hear this, but they were. They were one win away from knocking out the Florida Panthers, closer than anybody else did during the entire playoffs. And I know Leaf fans don't want to hear it because they've been going through this for the past decade now. But man, they're so close. They really, really are. And maybe Marner leaving the room and just little changes here and there is all it could take for the Maple Leafs to finally knock off the Panthers. And listen, second place sounds good, but you know what? It's not even close to first place. And that's the reality of the situation. If you're not first, you're last. And that's been the mentality of the Leafs for a while now. They've been planning cup parades since John Tavares came to the organization. And when they, drafted Nylander and Marner and Matthews, right? This was supposed to be a time where the Leafs were winning Stanley Cups by now. And it just hasn't worked out. So they are right there. I think they're going to be right back there next season. They're going to be in the conversation for the President's Trophy. They're going to be in the conversation for going to the East Finals and potentially the Cup Final. They are right there. But things got to fall into place too. You got to put yourself in the right position. And honestly, I think, Brad Treliving, in a circumstance that is very difficult to deal with, he found a way to make the most of really tough situations and tough decisions that were either his own decisions or kind of decisions that were taken out of his control. He has found a way to make it work and not completely blowing things up and making the Leafs look fragile and vulnerable. I think he's done a good job of that when it's all said and done. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.